The reason your morning routine keeps collapsing has nothing to do with discipline. You've been designing practices that fight your own psychology, and then blaming yourself when the resistance wins. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why some habits feel like gravity pulling you forward, while others feel like pushing a boulder uphill. And the difference comes down to something you're probably getting backwards right now. Think about the last daily practice you tried to build. Meditation, journaling, exercise, reading, pick any of them. You probably started strong. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then one morning you skipped it, felt guilty, skipped the next day too, and within a month, the whole thing dissolved like it never existed. You told yourself you lacked willpower. You bought a new planner. You tried again in January. The cycle kept repeating because the practice was structured as an obligation. And obligations trigger the same psychological resistance as work, chores, and deadlines. Your brain categorizes them together, things you should do, and files them in the mental drawer labeled effort. Once something lands in that drawer, it requires active motivation every single time you do it. Every single morning becomes a negotiation between the part of you that wants to grow and the part that wants to stay in bed. But there's a category of activities that never end up in that drawer, and understanding why changes the entire equation. You brush your teeth every day. You check your phone every morning. You make coffee. None of these require willpower. None of them feel like chores. The difference is that these behaviors are identity linked. You do them because they're part of who you are, woven into the texture of your morning so seamlessly that skipping them would feel stranger than doing them. Brushing your teeth requires zero motivation because you're a person who brushes their teeth. That identity layer removes the negotiation entirely. So the question becomes, how do you move a new practice from the obligation drawer into the identity drawer? And the answer is counterintuitive. You make it smaller. Absurdly, embarrassingly small. A researcher at Stanford spent years studying how behaviors become automatic. His core finding was that the size of the habit matters far less than the frequency. Doing 2 minutes of something every single day builds a stronger automatic pattern than doing 30 minutes 3 times a week. The short version becomes part of your daily identity. The longer version stays a scheduled event, something you attend like a meeting, rather than something you are. 2 minutes, that's the entry point. And your ego will hate it. You'll feel like 2 minutes of meditation is pointless. 2 pages of reading is nothing. 5 push-ups is a joke. That resistance, that voice saying this isn't enough, is exactly the trap that's been killing your practices for years. Because enough is the language of obligation. Enough for what? Enough to justify the effort. You've already reframed the practice as work. The boulder is back on the hill. The 2-minute version serves a different purpose entirely. It's training your brain to associate the practice with ease, with identity, with something so small it would be ridiculous to skip. And something interesting happens after about 3 weeks of this. The practice starts pulling you in rather than requiring a push. You sit down to meditate for 2 minutes and stay for 10. You open the book for 2 pages and read 20. The behavior generates its own momentum, but only once the identity layer has formed. Try to force the longer version before that layer exists, and you're back to willpower. Back to the boulder. There's a second piece to this that most people miss completely. When you practice matters almost as much as what you practice, and the optimal time has nothing to do with morning routines or winning the first hour. It has to do with something called an implementation trigger, an existing behavior that already happens automatically, which you attach the new practice to. You already have dozens of these triggers firing every day. Finishing your coffee, sitting down at your desk, putting your phone on the charger at night. Each one is a moment where your brain shifts gears, transitioning from one behavioral sequence to the next. That gear shift moment is a window. The old sequence has ended. The next one hasn't been selected yet, and your brain is briefly open to suggestion. Attach your 2-minute practice to that window, and the existing trigger does the heavy lifting. You finish your coffee, you sit down, you write for 2 minutes. The coffee becomes the cue, the practice becomes the next gear. Compare that to, I'll meditate at 7:30 a.m. Now you need a separate alarm, a separate decision, a separate act of willpower to stop whatever you're doing and switch to meditating. You've created friction where the trigger-based approach creates flow. 7:30 comes and you're mid-email, or the kids need breakfast. Or you just don't feel like it. The decision point becomes a negotiation point, and negotiations can be lost. There's a third layer that makes everything click together, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. Your practice needs to generate a feeling you actually want. Right now. Today. In the moment you do it. The long-term benefits, better focus, more clarity, improved health, those are real, but they're abstract. They live in the future, and the future is a terrible motivator for daily behavior. The thing that keeps you coming back tomorrow is how the practice makes you feel when you finish it today. This means you might need to redesign your practice around the feeling rather than the outcome. Meditation isn't about becoming a calmer person over 6 months. The version that sticks is the one where you sit for 2 minutes, take 3 slow breaths, and notice the specific sensation of your shoulders dropping half an inch. That physical relief, shoulders releasing tension you didn't know you were carrying, becomes the reward. Your brain timestamps it. Tomorrow, when the trigger fires, your brain already associates the practice with that micro-release. The pull strengthens. Journaling isn't about creating a record of your life. The version that sticks is the one where you write 1 sentence about what's weighing on you, and feel the slight unburdening of putting a foggy thought into concrete words. That clarity hit, the moment a shapeless worry becomes a specific, bounded sentence, is the reward your brain will seek again tomorrow. Exercise isn't about the body you'll have in August. The version that sticks is the one where 5 push-ups leaves your chest warm and your blood moving, and the heaviness of the morning lifts just enough that you notice the difference. That warmth is the reward. If your practice doesn't generate a feeling you want within the session itself, the architecture is wrong. Redesign it until it does. The feeling is the fuel. Everything else is a bonus. Now here's where all 3 layers work together. A small practice attached to an existing trigger that generates an immediate feeling you want. That combination bypasses the obligation system entirely. You're doing something easy, at a time that flows naturally, that feels good in the moment. Where is the chore in that? There's nothing to resist because there's nothing to endure. And over time, something shifts that you won't notice until it's already happened. The practice stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You're a person who writes after coffee, a person who moves their body before sitting down at the desk, a person who takes 3 breaths before the day starts. The identity forms quietly, below conscious awareness, built 1 2-minute session at a time. And identity-level behaviors have a staying power that obligation-level behaviors never will. You don't decide to brush your teeth each morning, you just do it. That's the target state. The critical mistake is trying to skip to the end. You read about someone's hour-long morning ritual, the cold plunge, the journaling, the breath work, the exercise, and you try to install the finished product on day 1. That's like watching a concert pianist and sitting down to play Chopin without learning scales. The pianist practiced scales so many times that playing became part of their identity. The complexity came later, built on top of automaticity, layered in gradually over months and years. Their practice grew. Yours is trying to arrive fully formed. Start with scales, 2 minutes, 1 trigger, 1 feeling. The practice will grow on its own. Actually, no. The practice will grow because you want it to, because the feeling calls you deeper, because the identity layer has formed and now the longer version feels like an extension of who you are, rather than an imposition on your morning. That growth is organic. It can't be forced, and it can't be scheduled. It emerges from the foundation you laid by being patient enough to start small and stay small until small didn't feel small anymore. Your phone has been on that charger every night for years, and you've never once thought of it as a chore. The charging cable is right there. The habit is invisible. Somewhere in your day, there's a window just like it, a moment between gears, a 2-minute gap, a place where something small could take root and grow, so quietly you won't notice the transformation until the person in the mirror practices without being asked.